curriculum, I guess, or questions. Yeah, we got 2 videos to show to get things started. First one is from Capital Factory. They do about 5-7 meetups a day here throughout the week, all the way from music, technology, coding, all things robotics, and they want us to all know. So let's go ahead and play that, and whatever the heck is in the background, it's got to go.
Welcome to Capital Factory.
We are glad you could join us here at the Center of Gravity for Entrepreneurship in Texas.
We bring together entrepreneurs, developers, and designers across Texas for meetups, classes, co-working, mentorship, events, and our accelerator program.
At Capital Factory's core, we're all about people and making lasting connections.
We meet the best entrepreneurs in Texas and introduce them to their first investors, employees, mentors, and customers.
We hope that you'll join us again and consider becoming a part of our community.
For more information on becoming a member, head over to join.capitalfactory.com.
Thank you.
Capital Factory before? Raise your hand. Awesome. New ones, keep them up. Awesome. I could have probably figured that one out myself. Appreciate y'all. This next video, and then we'll get started, is what we call our Creator Spotlight. So who has heard about Blended Sense before tonight? Who knows what Blended Sense is? You do?
Just recently.
Awesome. You're going to have to tell us.
You want me to stand? Okay, I'll stand. Hell. My name is Don. I was introduced to Blended Sense through Savannah Power, and did a interview last Thursday with Daniela. And so, oh, there she is. Hi. Nice to meet you, face to face. And so, coming to the orientation on the 7th, and going to try to work my way in. I'm primarily a soundy. I do a lot of location sound and then sound design and sound cleanup afterwards for film and video. However, I can do editing, I can do videography, I can do special effects, kind of a little bit of everything. Yeah. Cool, thank you. From what I can gather, it's like a local place where creatives can come and do their trade. And get paid, yeah, which is key. It was really nice. Yeah.
Appreciate you. Yeah, that was awesome. Welcome. So Blended Sense, we believe that both the small business owner and the creative professional are underserved and undervalued at scale, right? The small business owner, really the backbone of the U.S. economy, 28 million of them, 600,000 of them open every single year. But at the same time, almost 600,000 close every single year. And a lot of times it's because of their budgets being spread too thin on marketing efforts that don't pan out. So when a small business, every business has to market, right? We all know that. We all agree on that. But when a small business owner puts budget aside to market their business, it's really like do or die. And unfortunately, the agencies and the solutions out there are either way too low quality, right? Or they're just way too high of a price, leaving them inaccessible to a small business owner, right? And today, consumer behavior demands an enormous amount of communication through these digital platforms like YouTube, like Facebook, like Instagram, et cetera. So for a small business owner to actually keep up with today's demand, they need to have about 2-3 posts a day. That's 2 or 3 videos and photos a day. And the average cost for 1 minute of video editing through an agency is about $800. The average small business owner only has $400 to spend on marketing a month, right? So how we're solving for them is basically saying, hey, you need this on a recurring basis, not just one time. So we're taking this enormous cost and cutting it down to monthly subscriptions that's accessible to them, right? And we tailor it to them. And the way we do that is by matching them to the local creative professionals like yourself, based on interest, style, and location, with the idea that creative professionals are underserved and undervalued as well through the same agencies. Why? Net pays are net 60 to net 120, leaving you with cash flow problems, right? So you might have a good check coming, but it doesn't come 3 months, 4 months down the road. So 1 out of every 2 creative professional actually struggles with cash flow. And that's what we're looking to solve there. What we learned with creative professionals is typically they struggle with 3 main areas of business, and that's accounting, project management, and customer service, right? And that's what we're looking to solve through technology and through a managed marketplace like Daniela, who's a producer. So she handles all the grunt work, the customer service, the logistics, the scheduling, right? Putting you in a position to just create and get paid. Cool? Any questions on Blended Sense? Awesome. Today we are just a part of this amazing night. It's not about us. We're lucky to be here in the Capital Factory Accelerator program. But every single month we hold a creative workshop for creatives in the workforce to help bring experts that are actually making a living doing their creative discipline every single day and start to learn and build community around these 3 areas of opportunity: accounting, project management, and customer service. Cool? So this video I'm going to show y'all was made by Mr. Charles Fair in the seats over there, and he is our content strategist in-house. So he builds. Anybody know Gary V? D-Rock? That's our D-Rock right there. Give it up for Charles one time. Appreciate you. Such a hard worker. And our goal with these videos, this is our second one, but our goal is to highlight a creative in our network every single month, right? You guys just pour yourself and into this, and Shanna is just an example of the standard for us. We're so blessed to have her. She's one of our top photographers. She works with a lot of our food and product companies, and this is her creative spotlight. Hope you guys enjoy it.
The term creative, I feel, for me, means being thoughtful and intentional in making work. My name is Shanna Hickman, and I was born in Lubbock, Texas. My creative tool is I'm a photographer and a food stylist. What I look for in my creative process, or how I start my creative process, is there going to be a story to be told? Creating with Blended Sense has been great. I feel like I have found people with the same creative vision as myself. My favorite part of the creative process is, I would say, the end result. Getting it out of the camera, putting it in a computer, and seeing what I've made. I can't really say that I have a favorite photo, but one photo does stand out, and it was probably the first photo that I ever made when I was in school. It was a foggy morning, and I woke up, looked out the window, and I had really been wanting to make a picture that had some kind of gloomy weather out on the lake, because the lake is beautiful. So I ran down, grabbed my camera, ran down, no shoes, in my pajamas and my tripod, set it up out on the dock, and captured this beautiful photo, and it came out beautifully. That's the photo that I remember the most.
And she's gone through 2 tiers of pay now. So she's now at our top tier getting paid as a photographer. And it's just such a, she was already great, and she just keeps getting better every single time. And the customers she works with, all the customers she works with love her. That is all I got. So I'm done. You guys, I'll get rid of me, and I'm going to pass it off to our host for the evening. Give it up for Abigail Rose, our CEO.
All right. Thank you so much, Albert. You guys, I'm so excited to have you here tonight because it's on my heart to give creatives the opportunity to make a living. I started in my creative profession about 5 years ago as an actor, and I've consistently worked in commercial TV and film. Really fortunate to have booked some unbelievable gigs here in Austin, but like Albert said earlier, I was struggling with finding that consistent paycheck. And so I'd have to step out of my craft and go nanny or waitress or drive for Lyft or do these things that had nothing to do with what I've spent my life preparing for. And so it was through that experience being like, wouldn't that be amazing if I could just get on my phone and get connected to some of the local creative work in a way that was not on Facebook? And so that was kind of the inspiration for why we're here today. But more importantly, I love discussing how other creative professionals have found a way to do the thing and pay their bills and stay in the thing they love. And so today we have 3 very special guests. Hold your applause until I am done. First up, we have Cloudchord, aka Derek Van Schoten. Like the boat. Welcome. Derek is a music producer, multi-instrumentalist, and electronic musician based here in Austin. Actively releasing solo material since 2016. You changed your producer name from DVS to Cloudchord. I love this. In order to make a clear and colorful legacy. I think that's exactly what your music says. You specialize in augmenting musical possibilities, and you've been called aggressively chill. So if you are into the chill hop genre, as we are at Blended Sense, you most likely have heard some of Derek's music without even knowing it. And Derek, you've lived all around the country, Northeast, Nashville, Tennessee, Boulder, Colorado, Brooklyn, and now you're here. And your daughter, most recently, has been an actor in several of the children's products that we've been producing, and she's definitely caught your creative flair for sure. I can feel it. Give it up for Derek. Next up, we have Alberto Chapa, aka Beto. You are producer, audio consultant, and Ableton certified trainer with a passion for helping artists and organizations turn their ideas into reality. You own a company called Musical Guest, which offers live performance solutions for independent and major label artists, educational content development, production coaching, and workshops. As a artist, you use Ableton Live alongside traditional electronic and acoustic instruments to develop workflows that facilitate creativity while leaving room for expression and improvisation. And you also lead workshops ranging from introductory topics for beginners to advanced concepts for experienced professionals. And as an audio consultant, Alberto develops live performance and playback solutions for artists, integrating Ableton Live into existing studio environments and training curriculum for educational institutions. Woo! Give it up for Alberto! And finally, our guest, third guest of the night is Susan Castle, who has been working in radio here in Austin for over 30 years. You began in Chicago, but you came on down to Austin, the live music capital of the nation. Susan was fundamental in the birth of KGSR 107.1, transforming it from a jazz-only station to one of the stations that many of the Austinites now know, where they go to find new and upcoming music. You were the music director there for 20 years before you went over to KUT, which is another Austin favorite, one of mine personally, leading the effort in digitizing their music library and forging their new, all-new music station, KUTX. Through your career, you've worked with emerging artists to find their foothold in the music industry, like Amy Winehouse and Norah Jones. And you made a name for yourself in the radio business as a woman who has the best ear in the biz as well as the best comedic relief. Give it up for Susan. Awesome. So it just so happens that our 3 guests tonight are music creative professionals. But I think regardless of what your tool or your specific vertical in the industry is, I think that creative professionals across many different specializations can learn from each other and how you guys do what you do. So I got a mic there for you. Y'all can pass it around. First question is for everybody. And I have some individual questions. This is a fireside chat. So if at any moment the spirit arises in you and you want to ask something, please put your hand up. Feel free to talk out loud. We will have a little Q&A at the end. But first up, who or where does your love of music and creativity come from? Who'd like to start?
I'll start.
Let's go. You gotta click.
Check.
Mine is actually a very interesting one because when I was in 3rd grade, remember the jean jackets and then when you had the pins on your collars, you know, like 80s, and then they had the band patch on the back. Like jean jackets were a whole industry, right? So I got introduced to rock and roll via jean jackets, so via fashion. And my best friend, who I ended up having a band with for 8 years throughout my childhood, had the coolest pins, and he had Van Halen pins, like with the logo, with the VH and all that stuff, and he had the Kiss ones. And so really, it's funny because I'm now 43 and I've been a professional musician for over 20 years and I'm classically trained. But it was pins on jean jackets that were my gateway drug into music. So there you go.
That's awesome.
Keeping it in the vintage 80s air, I think my mom's sisters would record their favorite bands on VHSs and I think even beta tapes. And I was told that I would just wear them out. And like pretty much like all the cassettes that they would record of their like favorite music videos and stuff, it was just end up being my possession and just obsessing over pop music. Yeah.
Cool. The ladies in your life, I like that.
And I guess for me, my dad always had music on. And his dad was a violinist. And I never understood why I was so crazy about music because I didn't know he was a violinist till very late in life. So I think I was just kind of born with loving music and never thought I'd ever get into radio, but I did listen to a lot of radio when I was growing up. So I just sort of happened into something I loved, which is pretty amazing till this day.
Wow. So Derek, this first question's for you. As you just said, you're classically trained. You've been making a living for 20 years. How did it go from the band that you had with your friend when you were 8 to turning that passion to actually making a living doing it?
So by the time I was 15, I was playing in bars, opening up for my friend that had the pins. His older brother had a band, so they were already in college, and we were not even old enough to drive to the gig, and our parents were bringing us. So I grew up basically playing in bar bands and rock and roll, Jimi Hendrix, all that kind of stuff, Clapton, and then all the 80s stuff. But I came from a rock and roll background, and I wasn't, by the time it was time to go to college, I wasn't interested enough in traditional music studies like classical or jazz. I liked it, but I was more infatuated with sound and audio. So I went to Middle Tennessee State University for audio, and I only took like one music class in 4 years. And so the funny thing about all of it is the very final 3 credits out of the 4 years that I did an internship in Aspen, Colorado, and I was an audio engineer for the Classical Music Festival for 12 weeks. And so that summer, at the end of this 4-year journey of technology, and MIDI and Pro Tools were just getting going at the time, I was able to witness world-class acoustic musicians in front of me that didn't need amplifiers or pedals or anything like that. And I had, I grew up in bars, like playing Pearl Jam covers and stuff like that. So this was mind-blowing, And I got to put a mic up next to Bela Fleck's banjo and Sarah Chang, who's a world-class violinist, and witness all of that and hanging the microphones from the rafters above the orchestras. And I said to myself, I think actually that's what I want to do. Audio is cool, but if I can't actually play, I'll never be satisfied. So I got a gig for 2 years as an in-house audio engineer in Boulder, Colorado. And the whole time I actually saved up and worked up to do an audition to go to University of Colorado at CU. And then quit the audio job and just dove in head first and got really lucky in that my second semester at the University of Colorado, they allowed music majors to give lessons to non-music majors, and that's how I learned how to teach, because I was teaching a girl who was majoring in economics Dave Matthews songs, and that's how I kind of was able to keep it all going and not have to get a waiter job or swing a hammer in the summertime. So it was kind of really a roundabout way, but it's a really beautiful journey,
How long did you pursue, you're making a living on your own before you were working with a management team?
There's not really a black and white answer for that, because I've had several peaks and valleys, and right out of college, I actually joined a 10-piece Latin band from Denver called Cabaret Diosa, and they were already established, and so that was like a dream gig for me because I got to go play Great American Music Hall in San Francisco and Mercury Lounge in New York and all these cool festivals like High Sierra. So they had infrastructure. So I played in several bands that had management infrastructure, but as far as my own thing, it probably wasn't until 2010 that I started working with various people. And then this is my manager here, Cole Jones from Pivotal Agency. And we've been together since late 2015, early 2016. So
Cool.
He's a believer. I'm lucky to have him.
You need one of those, right?
Yeah, I'm lucky to have him.
Yeah. It's crazy how important having some validation is to make you feel like, oh wait, I am a professional. I can do this thing.
Right. Totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
Amazing. Susan, what was the entry point into radio like when you first got started?
Well, I went to college and I had to declare a major by junior year, and I wasn't even interested in going into radio. But a couple of my friends were always having fun. I thought, what's your major? And they said, we're radio and TV, and I wanted to go into advertising. So I thought that that would be my best route. So I was actually on the college radio station, but it was really bad. It wasn't like, KVRX or Co-op or anything. We played like the sound of Latvian music. And I think my first job, it was Hit Parade, and I would play like Patti Page and some really bad stuff. So I never even wanted to go into radio when I graduated, but it just kind of called me back in. And I worked at a very small radio station in Lowell, Indiana. And from there, everything just sort of opportunities presented themselves, and I jumped and did it.
Were you always working in radio, or were you doing some side gigs as it became more of a lifestyle?
I was always trying to get into advertising. So I would put together my portfolio, and I was outside of Chicago, so I'd go to Leo Burnett and all the big places. And when that didn't pan out, a friend of mine who I was in radio and TV with called me and said, I should go there because she's leaving. And I was wanting to go there because I wanted to write commercials for radio, because it was always such the most creative medium. You have only your imagination, voice, and your sound effects and stuff like that. And then I was encouraged to go on the air.
So was there a point where you had to realize that this is what you were supposed to be doing? Or did you have to go, okay, we're going to put that other stuff aside and I'm going to go full time on this?
I was basically just sort of led to it. I was in the right place at the right time. The first in Lowell, they were bought out by Satellite Music Network, and they heard me and wanted me to go over there. And I'm like, okay. I don't consider myself very ambitious, but I think being a female at that time, because this is back in the 1900s, 1980, 85 and 86 is when it happened. And just along the way, I had people who believed in me, although I never believed in myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was being a woman in that space important to you? Did you feel like you needed to do this thing, or it just was what it was?
Not really. So when I was interning there and then they hired me full time, one of the guys who wanted the job basically told me it's because I was a female that I got it. And truth be told, I think so, because he was way better than I was. So it was...
We need some diversity.
Yeah. Exactly, because this is, the EOE era.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe they did need diversity, and they hired me. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad they did. I can hear your radio voice. It's
I'm really trying hard.
Awesome. Alberto, how did you get introduced to Ableton, and did you know right away this is what you wanted to do for a living?
Not at all, and it's hard to follow a professional radio voice, so I'll try my best.
Yes.
I think I had a really unconventional path to it, and at one point I felt that I'd made individual decisions in my career that wouldn't connect, that might have just been disparate jobs at the end of the day. Ableton is a manufacturer of it's a leading music production software called Ableton Live. It's used all over the music industry, and it was always something I was fascinated with, and I used as a bedroom producer, and just something that I wanted to learn as deep and as much as possible. at one point, I had finished a career as an elementary school teacher, so I was in education, very disillusioned. Any creatives, considering teaching it is a very fulfilling profession, but it requires a lot of you. So there isn't a lot of time for you to focus on your creative endeavors.
What were you teaching?
Elementary.
Like little kids?
Yeah, 3rd grade for 4 years, Barrington Elementary. Yeah, some of my second batch of 3rd graders are just graduating from high school this year, and it's like, what? Yeah. So I had tried to get linked up with Ableton and work with them in some way because I was just such a fan of their product. And I found out that they were looking for people with an education background because they're always giving back to local education initiatives, and in general, they want people to understand that we all have a relationship with music. And with technology, we all have the ability to explore it. We don't all have to want to be professional musicians, but we can make music at home. Like there was a time where people would gather around the piano and watch their oldest sister play a tune and just enjoy that. And where has that gone? Trying to reinvent music education is something that's really big to Ableton, and it's a big passion of mine. We've done a lot of really cool projects with AISD and different after-school programs. But that's how I got involved, through a series of unrelated events and being prepared, all the creative cliches, like being prepared and showing up and having that perfect combination of luck at the same time.
Right, that's what luck is. Preparation, opportunity, meeting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is Ableton the industry standard now?
It depends what you do in the industry. Pro Tools is definitely still the industry standard as far as mixing down audio, conventional tracking, and what Ableton Live allows you to do is, take an idea from sound design or from the inception of what you would want an instrument to sound like, all the way through the creative process of creating a track around those sounds and even performing them on stage. So the software can actually even be used as an instrument. I think it's like the Beatles are famous for having started the concept of or sharing the concept with the world of using the studio as an instrument. And I think that was a very inaccessible thing. You needed a huge budget, you needed a willing producer, you needed an actual studio that had things to play around with. But now you can do it on your computer, you can do it on your iPad, you can do it while you're waiting for your plane. And not only do it, you can share it with people, and you can take that to a point where you're using it to create a live performance as well. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's the industry standard in a way. Yeah.
In general, and getting into that realm of things, from video editing to...
It's great for composing for video. I'll talk to you after that.
Yeah.
Cool. Kind of staying in that digital age, Susan, what was it like to make the transition from analog to digital? And did you, what inspired that? Did you propose it to the station? Did they want you to do it? Or are you just like, we got to go for this?
You mean at here in Austin?
Yeah, here in Austin, but maybe just in general too.
Well, I will say this. So when I first went over to KUT, we were still using CDs. And they hired me after I got let go from KGSR specifically to help them with the digitization process. So, and it does have some nice benefits, but, I started and we were playing vinyl and albums. And, then digital came along and I never could understand, zeros and ones, how does this all work? And then we thought, as technology progresses, you feel at some point, when is the irrelevance going to be in play? And I feel that right now with Spotify and all the streaming services, because that has, I don't want to use the word decimated, that might be an exaggeration, but it has definitely affected radio in general. And I'm not sure in 10 years if radio will be around, especially if you don't reinvent yourself. And that's one of the great things about KUT and KUTX. And I've been in commercial radio for most of my radio career, and they don't even care about the money. It's all about community enrichment. And we have Debbie Hyatt, who was the over at Austin American Statesman. She was one of the big wigs, and she just came in, and she is very much about becoming platforms and working on all of our podcasting and our just every little bit to become more than just a radio station.
Yeah, because it's like inevitable that
right,
it's going to be here to stay. And
well, you have to, be more than a radio station because you can get music anywhere.
Right, exactly.
So, and that is the one thing is you have to kind of be in front of all of that. And I don't know if a lot of my compatriots are doing that. So that's why I think radio at some point may go away.
I think that's interesting. And Derek, you started off, you said playing Pearl Jam in bars, but like now your music is super electronically created. I have two questions. One, what's the balance between what you're creating electronically, what you're literally still playing on instruments? And for example, how does these streaming services, how has this changed your career path? Because for example, I do listen to you on Spotify. So what has the digital age done for your music?
It's been amazing, to be honest. But to talk to your point, you have to reinvent yourself. If I was still playing in that 10-piece Latin band, you would be asking me different questions, right? And I'd be frustrated because I'm dealing with 9 other people on the road all year long, right? But to answer your first question, how much live music versus electronic stuff? I think just in general, you always got to have at least a little bit of human for it to resonate with people, musically speaking. Maybe not sound design for the Transformers movie or something like that. But if you're talking about songs, like even if it's just a little sprinkle of human, like you have to have it. I come from a guitar background, so a lot of my pieces kind of begin and end there. I do... If any of you want a quick plug, my Instagram page at Cloudchord, I do a lot of lick of the day. And so I do little 15-second licks. And for me, that's actually a great jump starter to just get ideas going. I think a lot of people, a lot of my students and a lot of my contemporaries, when they're creating, they're looking 4 or 5 miles down the road instead of what's right in front of them. Like, how do I get a 4-minute song? Well, don't worry about that. How do you get one measure of a song, and then that's how you get 4 measures, and that's how you get 16, and that's how you get on and on. So to answer your first question, I think for me personally, it's always at least half organic because I come from that background. And then how has it benefited me or disbenefited me? It has been a mix. I do. In some ways, like compared to somebody who works for a radio station, I seem like really on the cutting edge, which I am in a lot of ways. But say a lot of other artists that are on my roster, I gig a lot less than them because I am organic and I'm not making strictly bass music that I can just play festival after festival. I'm a little bit more of a unique listen. So, but I'm crushing all of those people on streams. So that's kind of cool too, And I totally see with the radio thing how it's very much a push and pull because I'm a huge fan of radio. But streaming has been amazing for me over the past 2 years. I think between streaming and Instagram, thousands of people have stumbled upon my art, which is what you're going for. We can get on top of a hill and we can shout until we're blue in the face, but really you want to create enough art in enough corners of the world that people are like, for example, last year in Indonesia, my fan base went up like 290% or something like that. And think about like before the digital age, how would I have made that happen? I would have to ship stuff to Indonesia. There would have to be a translator. It would cost me money to get it there. It would cost me money to keep it there. And it would cost me money to promote it. And I literally just put it on a digital network and they take a percentage of it. And that is amazing. So.
Cool.
Breaks down the barriers for sure.
Yeah.
Not big enough yet, but this is my year, dude. Yeah, I guess passively it's been good for me. But my own station, I actually want to start doing more like tutorial things and involved things. So my own station isn't nearly as big as my other socials are, but that's like definitely on the front burner. So
Cool.
Yeah, I've got a question. So in technology, there's agile. I don't know if anybody heard it. Agile, how you build tech, right? You just go and reiterate and iterate. And I think that's something you do fantastic. Is you put out work. You put out volume, like a lot of work. Right. And I think creatives struggle with that, right? Like, is it good enough? Am I gonna get judged? Like this and that. Right. So I'd love to hear from you. Like, what's that drive? Is it just a work ethic drive, or what's your psychological thought pattern of putting out that much work?
what do you, let's ask my manager, what do you think?
We've done 2 schools of this. It's the very refined release strategy of finishing music. Oh, we got to put this in a box. We got to wrap it in a bow tie. We're going to do it in this month, and so on and so forth. And so went down that avenue. That's not Derek. Like I said, Lick of the Day, he is a content and music producing beast. And so I think it was about 2 years too, where he just said, F all this, I'm gonna do it my way, and I don't wanna look at, what majors are doing or any of this. Like, it's challenging from a management perspective because he's like, okay, this is done, I wanna release it next week. And we're like, whoa, we gotta do something, we got a marketing rollout, we gotta do something for this, but he wants it to be as authentic and kind of informal. I like that because he believes that's the truest form of the art without all of the manipulation and the sells and the marketing, all of that stuff. So, to his credit, that has, and especially in a single driven digital age of all of these DSPs, it works because people's attention spans are so, a couple minute track, it's gone. Like, you don't see albums, you don't see this, so like more EPs, more singles, all of that, you consistently feed the machine, and that we've seen a lot of growth.
And Cole and I have a sticky note that we share together, and on the top of it, it says, no more than 6 weeks without releasing music, no matter what. So
That's cool. Follow-up question to that then. So what's a day-to-day workflow like? Are you getting up and forcing yourself to come up with concepts, or are you getting up and just working on technique and skills?
I never have to force myself. I think maybe I'm lucky in that way. And then it's never been like, oh, I gotta practice. It's been like, I can't wait to practice. And I really want to go see my friends at that party, but I should really finish this beat. So for me, it's like, there's no choice. Like, would I rather be doing something else? No. And honestly, it's like the only thing I'm good at. Like, just ask my wife. It's like, I do music, she does everything else.
That's amazing. Steph.
What was the moment that you finally set aside your day job, and what was that like?
That's actually a great question. It was very much like, to speak to the DJ world, it was a long crossfade. It was like a 64-month crossfade or something like that. And it also, so I haven't done anything outside of music for money since like 2005, but I also teach. So that is, the answer to that is kind of personal, compared to somebody like Diplo or like like Rick Rubin. I still kind of have a day job because I give lessons, but to me, it's not a day job at all. It actually totally fulfills me. And I think one of the ways I'm able to stay so creative is because I do teach. So like most days by 2 or 3, I have to be helping someone else. So I can't get too far in my own rabbit hole. And in addition to having to help someone else, it actually spikes all this other creativity inside me, because I'll be teaching a 15-year-old about Ableton, and then I discover something myself, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna save that for my next EP. Great lesson, kid.
Amazing, great question, Steph. Alberto, we're gonna kind of pivot and to talk about a little bit about customer expectations, right? Because I think that's something that a lot of creatives may have to balance, right? How do you fulfill your own personal drive, but also you have customers. So my question for you is how much of the client's input affects what you do? And are you able to take creative liberty, or is there a balance in managing expectations and your expertise?
To answer the first part, everything I do, I try to personalize to that challenge or whatever the customer's facing. The idea behind musical guest is that I'm the person that comes into your band or to your school or to your company and does a specific thing. It can be related to audio technology, it could be teaching, or it could just generally be like production sessions with people. What was the second part? I don't think I got that.
I'm just curious when if a client's ever like, oh, I want it like that, and you're like, do
all
you
the time.
really?
No, all the time. It's especially in music, and it's that fine balance. One of the like many disparate lives that I've had in my past lives was working customer service jobs. Those were my service industry jobs, and learning how important that is and how important it is to maintain control in, and not in a controlling way at all, but in maintaining the positivity of the experience. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Right.
And people want to feel listened to. People want to feel like they're getting their money's worth when they're hiring somebody. And in any industry, that's 80% of the job is proving to them the value of what you're doing. So it is a big thing, and I take that challenge on very happily. I think it's just part of doing business. Derek touched on what he does not feeling like work, and I think when it stops feeling like work, you're willing to go that extra mile and provide for your customers that great experience.
Yeah. So sometimes it's a little bit of kindly guiding them to the right solution without crushing, their opinion, right?
And as far as the solution, so that's, the customer experience with you as a professional, then, the actual experience of producing something, putting together an event or a video or creating music is a completely different relationship. I think once the song and dance of being hired or getting the bid or whatever that looks like for you, you've kind of gotten that out of the way, and you're just somebody that they're supposed to trust. And proving your trust through that customer experience is really important. I think a lot of people overlook that, but it's a great way to build that rapport and let people know that you're interested in the product and that you're going to give it your all once it actually starts.
Awesome. Kind of the same question for you, Susan. How much of what you play on the radio station is influenced by what they want, and how much of it is your personal taste or style?
We have just started talking about maybe doing some sort of way to figure out what our listeners do want. So probably there's not a lot of that going on right now. And we get to play, half the stuff we play an hour we get to pick. The other half, when you have new music, you want to have it roll around in a certain pattern so it gets heard at different times of day. So we don't touch the new music, but everything else we get to play, and we've got 3 or 4 times an hour where we can play whatever we want. And I usually try to play something from Austin if somebody's in town and stuff like that. So I get to play a lot of what I like. And I feel that, I don't know that I would have been successful at it maybe even 30 years ago, but I have a good feel a little bit more of what works in Austin. And because when I was at the music director at KGSR, we would do testing where you would get about 60 people in an auditorium, play them 15 seconds of the hook, and they would, fill in a little dot and say, I like it, I love it, I hate it, don't ever play it again. And time again, you would get the same top 10. Patsy Cline's Crazy would always be number 1. And then a Frank Sinatra song somehow, and ZZ Top's LaGrange. Everybody, that was always in the top 10. So you kind of start getting a feel of what works here, and then you just look at this, the musical riches we have here, and just play, like we used to play a lot of I Love It at KGSR, so we, did a lot of that. But we just try to play really good music that we enjoy, hoping that everybody else enjoys it. As pedestrian as that sounds, that's basically my philosophy.
Do you take callers?
Yes.
Have you ever had an argument or a bad experience or tricky situation on air with a caller?
Not live, thank goodness. But I had one call. Somebody called. This is during my KGSR days. He said, "All you do is play country music. I've tuned in for an hour. You play country music," and I took issue with it because I said no. I played Peter Gabriel and Talking Heads, and he and I got into it. And I hung up, and about 10 minutes later, our general manager came in. And I said, he called to pick a fight, and I gave him one, basically. And it's like, you don't have to listen to us. No one's forcing you. Just hit one of those buttons and, go to another radio station if you're not happy with what we do. But I knew his premise was not accurate, and I was feeling a little testy that day. And I did feel bad about that.
Yeah. How do you keep it fresh and exciting every day when you walk into the station?
Just getting to play new music all the time. And I like playing the classic rock stuff, but I like following it up with something, brand new, like we're playing Kaytranada and Pharrell. And I like to, go from maybe a Temptations song to that, show the connection between the history of it.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And we get to play all different genres. And, and I know sometimes when we play some of the hip hop stuff, our older end folks are probably not real happy, but I don't care. Because the next song I'm going to play is going to hopefully be something you like.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. I have a great job. But I don't even consider it a job, and that's I've never dreaded going into work for 30 years.
That's such a blessing to have.
Truly.
And just kind of unbelievable that your story to get there was kind of pieced together. You didn't have your eyes on this thing that you had to do, or you'd be unhappy for the rest of your life.
Well, I always knew I couldn't do a 9-to-5 job. And I always knew I loved music and loved being around fun people. And, so it kind of just evolved that way.
What is the day in the life of a radio host like?
Well, I do a lot of show prep. So the night before, I'll look to see who's playing and what's happening in Austin. And then I do this little segment called Ocho Loco, where I pick a topic every day, and listeners can, on Facebook, post songs. So I spend a lot of time doing that. And I go in and I follow John Ailey, which is always an interesting, I don't know if everyone knows John Ailey here, but he's our morning man, and he is the most interesting. He just opens his mouth and says what's ever on the top of his head, and you either like him or you don't like him, but I love him. And then I get to go in and kind of get into my zone for 3 hours. And today I had 2 groups of exchange students from Germany come in. They were 8th graders and 7th graders. And the 8th graders had a little bit of an attitude. I asked them if they liked, what kind of music they liked. And I said Billie Eilish, and half the room said no, and the other half said we love Billie Eilish. And the 7th graders came in, and they just had a different vibe, so I actually let them go on the air with me. But they had to say, KUTX is my favorite station in the world, and I just put them on there, and they were so fun. And it was so fun to be able to do that and not worry if my program director is going to come down and say, what the hell were you thinking? Because they talked in German accents. And our audience loves that stuff because it's, it's the communication, it's the connection, it's the, why you listen to radio and not Spotify all day. And I'm not knocking Spotify because I love it. So, but yeah, it's a blast.
Yeah, I only listen to radio in the car. It's just kind of the only place that I feel I can get that sort of spontaneous in the moment feeling and connection to the city, most importantly. And I feel like that's what's kind of made me feel like an Austinite, is listening to the local radio coming in from Massachusetts, getting exposed to all the local musicians. Massachusetts in the house. Woo! Yeah. Awesome. Alberto, back to kind of customers. Oh, please.
I'm fascinated, because I love podcasts, right? And it's always a topic of the health of radio and what's going to happen. I love radio because it's so local. It's local, right? It's community influenced and all that good stuff. What do y'all have to do now to compete with streaming and podcasts? Y'all have a podcast, and then is there any? Do y'all stream radio?
Yeah, we do. We have our app. We stream all over the world, and when we do our, twice a year membership drives, we hear from London and other places. And if you Google, I'm going to brag a little bit, top radio stations to stream, we pop up in the top 10. So we'll always hear from people. And we do all of our shows the next day. You can go online and listen if you missed. Rick McNulty does Left of the Dial, so that will be up there for people to come stream. We do podcasts. Elizabeth McQueen, who used to be a singer with Asleep at the Wheel, does a This Song podcast. So she sat down with Phineas. Lindsay was there at ACL Fest and asked him what song changed your life. So she does that podcast. The Breaks now, we do the little hip hop show Saturday nights. They do a podcast. So we're trying to do all the different platforms. And yes, and it is all about adapting. But there are radio stations that don't really dig into the local music scene. You know, they do some gratuitous stuff, but everybody's so afraid because, you know, there's so much money invested in it that you're afraid to, you know, do something outside the box. But we can do that because of our business model. You know, we're not beholden to any shareholders or big corporations. It's all of us loving Austin and sharing our love for Austin with everyone who still loves radio, basically.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Derek and Berto, I have a couple practical questions for you guys. So whoever wants to answer first, kind of around the lines of Derek, you're gigging, you're streaming. How did you learn how to set your correct rate? How did you keep track of your income? What did you implement before, you know, you kind of knew what you were doing?
I mean, that's kind of an ongoing answer because you always are becoming more organized and platforms and revenue streams are shifting.
Yeah.
You know, I will say that distribution over the past couple of years has gotten a lot more refined. So that's great. For example, anytime I do collaborations, all of the splits are built into distro. So I don't have to hound anybody, nor do they have to hound me. You can build in your management splits into there. So there's a lot of admin stuff that is being taken care of, you know? And then I think the rate thing, that's really tricky. I remember asking that to one of my college professors and they really punted. They said, whatever the market will bear. And but it's true, you know, for example, anybody giving an Ableton lesson on the Upper West Side of Manhattan doing house calls probably makes more than somebody does in Houston or Dallas. Depending, you know, unless it's like a house call into a super crazy rich thing. But so some of that is just adapting and like looking at your contemporaries and what they also charge too, I think.
I think Derek said it perfectly. It's also a topic that a lot of people aren't willing to talk about. I think that I go on my rant about the myths of the music industry. And I think that's something that we need to take ownership of as creatives and musical creatives is the business side of things. I think for the longest time people were fed the idea that that's like what the suits do and like it's gonna impede your creativity. And at the end of the day, everybody ended up getting screwed. And people that were friends ended up not being friends and lives were ruined in the process. So I think that education, awareness, like being in control of what you do is always a solution in a situation like that. And I think the more involved you are, the more you start seeing what your value is and starting to get a grasp of what other people are charging, what your market is willing to bear, and what you think is just. Because I was talking to a future guest of one of your 5-star chats, DJ Cassandra.
Oh, she's my favorite.
She's amazing.
She will be here in April, I think.
Plug to DJ Cassandra,
Yeah.
another successful BumbleBiz connection.
Oh, definitely.
Anybody else meet Abby on BumbleBiz by any chance? Am I the only one? Okay.
Surprisingly,
Yeah.
honestly. I've met, if y'all are new to Austin, I'll plug Bumble a little bit. BumbleBiz, if you were dating your significant other dating apps like I was, I didn't get to get that experience.
If you don't mind the occasional pyramid scheme.
Yeah, you're like, oh God. We continue.
Where was I?
We were talking about what you
Pyramid
said
schemes.
with DJ Cassie.
Oh, yeah. So talking about how there are experiences where you do it for actually the value of you selling your service.
Mhm.
There are some experiences that you're willing to do for giving back to the community. There are
Mhm.
other experiences that you do because they're going to give back to you. They're going to enrich you as a professional, maybe through learning, networking, sharing. So there's
Yeah.
always a balance. It's not, we have to run a business, so we have to think of the bottom line. But we're fortunate that at the same time, we can also plan on feeding the artist in us too through that.
Yeah. How practical do you get with your books? Like, for example, I was keeping track of my acting salary on Excel because, like, that's the best I knew how to do. So I'd go back and check in if I got a payment, yes, no. That way I knew, this thing I did for $75 still hasn't paid me. It's been 3 months and I got to now hound this person. But just kind of that the peace of mind. And then I also feel like once I got way more practical about tracking my income and knowing what was going where, I started to make more. Do you, what for your business, is there any tools that you could share with us?
That's also
If you're
something
comfortable.
I'm always comfortable sharing. I don't think I would qualify as an expert. I'm still looking for the right solution. There's
Yeah.
so many apps and services out there. A lot of them come with a pretty hefty percentage, and just finding, the quality of the service versus how much you're paying for it is always part of the challenge. But knowing that some of that is going to be taken care of for you, that there's a record, there's a paper trail, that some alert will say, hey, this has not been paid for, and both you and the client will get a reminder. That's really valuable. But yeah, it's not. I guess one of your previous guests, Marissa, is an accountant for creatives,
Yep.
and I had a consultation with her.
Amazing.
And she's been setting me straight and
Yeah.
kind of painting 2020 as a completely different approach so that everything is more accounted for. And one of my, that I can start setting goals so that I can make more money
Yeah.
by understanding how I make money.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Couple final questions here. Susan, do you have any inclination of where you see music going in the next 5 years, or what excites you about what you're hearing today?
Well, I think one of the things that scares me is hearing recently that a lot of the artists who are trying to game Spotify are making shorter songs. So you get paid if a person can get 75%, I think, through your song. So they're putting out songs that are a minute and a half. So that scares me that, they're having to compromise their art to make a living. And I know, unless you're Uptown Funk and you have 400 billion streams, it's a business model that scares me, because when you had CDs that cost $15 and you'd get a percentage of it, depending what deal you struck, sometimes you could get $5 per CD. And it would take like an Adele who would sell all those CDs that would basically run or fund the record company. About 13% of artists, as you probably know, make money. So what scares me about it is a lot of these artists aren't going to be able to make money, and then their art's going to be gone. So I don't know. I know at this point it took the record companies a long time to figure out how to make money, but of course they do it at the expense of the artists. So I'm concerned about that. I also know that Austin artists, most people can't make a living playing music here in Austin, the live music capital of the world, so I don't even know what it's like in smaller markets. So I'm a little concerned.
Is there any way that we as music appreciators can support our local artists better?
Yes. So what is happening now, since they're not making money on as much money selling their music, and some don't even sell it, but the streams, is go see live music, because they get the door and they'll get all that money. And this is why Britney Spears is putting out Perfume. They're trying to figure out, how can I do my craft and my creativeness and still make a living? Tip jars. I now tip musicians wherever I go. I was at the Saxon Pub with some friends out of town. I put $60 in the tip jar, because I know that, we're not used to tipping. You pay the money at the door, and I don't know what the cut is at Saxon, but I would say tip as much as you can and go support live music.
Man.
Yeah.
Derek, final question for us tonight. Have you reached your vision of success, or are there some milestones ahead?
Yes, because I love what I do. So I consider my life already a success. But I think the other side of that is I will never be done. There will always be a reason for me to get out of bed in the morning. And speaking to like potential issues down the road and stuff, that also makes me want to get out of bed in the morning. And like, you know, financial planners talk about like diversifying your portfolio. And I talk about that with a lot of musicians. Like, what is our version of that? My version is to do, my career is in 3 chunks. I'm a performer, I'm a composer, and I'm an educator. So when they're all popping off, it's extremely overwhelming, but gratifying at the same time. And since there's 3 of them, if 1 or 2 are just kind of half, I'll still be okay. You know, which also kind of makes me a workaholic, but I'm okay with that because I do what I love. But I think, actually, maybe so to give you a shorter answer to your question, I want to keep making music that I believe in and get it to more ears and to be able to perform and to really continue to be the face of a performing guitarist in electronic music. And I think that's a very untapped area of the music world. I mean, it's definitely happening, and there's bands that have guitarists that do electronic music, and there's other people who do. So for those of you who haven't seen me live, I basically like stand up and I play guitar, and I have a slide guitar here, and then I have a bunch of mixers and stuff like that, and my computer's there. So and I produce all the music, but it's very live. Like I can change direction at any point. I can cut a song, and I can extend a song. I'm very much like a DJ, and that I will, if I play a 90-minute set, it might be like one long mix the whole time. So I really enjoy that aspect too. And that's something that Cole and I have talked about, is like, well, I'm doing okay enough with streams that I don't have to gig, but I will never not want to do that. I'll always want to be performing and meeting people and shaking hands and, you know, giving out stickers, which I have for all of you.
Is there an upcoming show that you'd like to plug right now?
Sure. I'm actually playing this Saturday at the Austin Roller Rink for the Valentine's Day disco party.
Oh, that sounds like so much
Can we announce the other one? So what's the date? It's April 9th, which is a Thursday, with RJD2 at Empire. So
Amazing.
I'll probably have some live horns for that one.
Awesome. And then you just had an EP that released.
I just released an EP today called Taken by the Sky. It's out everywhere, so check it out.
It's phenomenal.
And if you don't like it, I have 2 singles coming out in March, so there you go.
You're going to be speaking at South by Southwest at the Ableton Meetup. Do you have a date for that?
It's the Thursday of the music conference.
Cool.
Towards the end of the day at 6. So if you're around for South by, we're trying to get users from around the world, from film, theater, dance, just all these interdisciplinary walks that are available at South by, get them in the same room and just mingle.
Sweet.
That is going to be at the Austin Convention Center, I believe. It's on the schedule. Yeah.
Awesome. And Susan, when can we hear you?
I'll be on the air tomorrow at 9 a.m. Yeah, I'll be on the air tomorrow at 9 a.m. So if you want to tune in. And I would love to get some of your music and maybe play it.
I would love that.
Okay.
Woo! Q&A. Anybody have any questions for these phenomenal guests? All right, let's go. I saw Boston with the hand up first.
Yeah. My name's Anthony, by the way. As Abigail pointed out, I'm new to Austin. I'm originally from Boston, and I've only been here for 5 months, and 4 of them I was in rehab. So I just founded my creative fire, and I wanted to know, what is like the first step into entering this world as an aspiring musician, singer, and actor? Because I'm in a whole new world, and my first step really was actually coming here to network. So I wanted to know. Oh, thank you. I want to know really what is the first step I should take.
From me personally, I would say connect with people. Like, it's the most important thing in a world and in professions where everybody's shouting on social media and trying to get like as many people to pay attention to them as possible. For me, the power of the one-on-one connection with people seeking help or with my clients is the most valuable thing I can give them. So putting yourself out there in a genuine way where you're sharing yourself and you're actually connecting with people is the best advice I can offer you.
So leave here tonight with someone's phone number and a coffee meetup in the books.
I have one quick thing to add to that. As an artist, with social media and the internet, it can be very overwhelming. And like, think about this. You wake up in the morning, you're inspired by one song, you're inspired by another. But if you're inspired by 11 songs, that's too much. So what I mean is maybe create over time a piece of paper or note that has a yes and no column for what your visions are. Yes, things I'm inspired by, no things that I don't want to bother with, because that can really help you. You can look at that yes and no column and you can say, today, I'm just going to focus on one of those yeses.
Thank you.
Hey guys, my name's Chris. I produce electronic music and I also have a podcast, so I feel like this was such a good meetup for me. It's more of a technical question, and I feel like I have so much to learn over these next few years about my craft. So for my question for everyone really is, what was really the number one thing you did to get better at the technical parts of your craft?
I would say invest the time in it. Put the time in. There's a lot of tutorials and solutions and packages of like anything that you want to learn. A lot of those are really useful, but at the end of the day, if you don't sit down in between one course and the next, or one project and the next, and evaluate where you are and how you can get better, then you run the risk of just remaining stagnant.
Yeah, and as far as podcasts, I would listen to a bunch of podcasts and see what appeals to you and sort of use that as a model, because there's so many different sort of podcasts. So, it's good to find out what you like from other artists and then put your own unique spin on it. So I would say that would be a good thing to do.
Hey, how y'all doing over there? I don't know if you can see me all the way in the back. I'm Keaton. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. So I come from Motown and techno music. I don't know if anybody here has ever been to any of the techno festivals on Memorial Day weekend, but I'm telling you, if you're looking for a techno version of Disneyland, go there. So I really want to challenge you, because this is something I really want to do, because I grew up in Detroit. I'm pretty sure everybody in this room has heard something here or there about it, good or bad. So how am I able, as an aspiring performer, should I be able to express that to people? Because I'm trying to, I'm all about people taking a second look. That's something I've learned in recent years. So how should I go about that?
So one thing I have found out about Austin that a lot of cities don't have, it is a wonderfully welcoming creative community. And lots of artists mix and match. Like if they're looking for a drummer, they know who to call, or they'll call somebody who knows what to call. So I would try to get into what kind of music, are you techno?
I haven't really done stuff like that, but I'm definitely I really want to do DJing. I actually am friends with the DJ in Detroit. There's also there's a couple of music artists who I have met. There's this one artist named Shigeto who is awesome. I mean, awesome. I've seen this dude play live, and it really is mind blowing, because he takes this kind of like a DJ set, and he gives you a live band, and he's solo. So if you go and listen to his music, just envision him performing that music on stage. I've seen it myself, and it's mind blowing. So definitely, I would love to do DJing. I make a great hype person. Believe me, I can. But when I tell you I can energize a room, I'm not kidding. So definitely stuff like that. I'm opening my mind up to a lot of different things because I just like entertaining a crowd. I'm definitely a people person.
It's a very welcoming community. I think you picked a good spot from Detroit. And I would go to maybe some clubs too and just kind of hang out and meet people there and try to get into a club that you think would fit for you and talk to the manager and or just the artist who is performing and just start meeting people because I think you'll find them just embracing.
If you're talking about like movement and the things up there, like check out a thing here in town called Vibe Vessel. I think you will resonate with that. They do a bunch of techno, cool vibey parties and events. You'll find quite the community that's in there, like-minded individuals.
Cool. I just wanted to comment because we've been circling around certain topics like keeping things human, connecting with people. And I think in this day and age when technology is almost capable of doing anything at all, and every industry is challenged, and even musicians are like, what, technology can compose music now too? Like, what the hell? Something that I've been repeating to people is that what moves me personally is seeing a human being do something that I can't do. I expect a machine to be faster and smarter and more efficient, but like you said, seeing somebody perform and put it together, it's a juggling act, there's adrenaline, there's danger, and it's just, we still look for that. Even though we don't know we are looking for that, we're looking for that. And if you give that to people, I think that's a great gift to offer somebody that's following and supporting your work.
Nice. Thank you for the question. Anybody else? Oh.
Sorry. I just realized that out of all the creatives, musicians and music artists are the most at risk. Because, and here's why, and this just came to me, a photographer, a videographer, copywriter, those services are on demand and they're applicable to the marketplace. For you guys, going back to Susan, reinventing, like, in order for music to really get to the same par of what these guys are making and the access to creativity as a service, there has to be some reinventing, right? And I know, Derek, you talked about just the performance reinventing of, why is it stage and crowd, things like, yeah, that was a while ago. But I think I want to ask you guys, maybe what are ways that as a music artist, a music creative, right, a sound creative, an audio creative, how do you take your skill set and turn it into a service, right?
I think part of that is having very tangible products. So like when you're getting into something new, like I follow a lot of comedians because musicians and comedians are pretty much entertainment cousins or siblings, There's so much gray area that is applicable to either side. And they think in bits, and they'll have 20-second bit that is maybe part of a 90-second bit that flows into, and actually like DJs at Movement in Detroit think of that way, but more on a macro scale, like a bit to them is 4 minutes because it's house music and that fits into a 90-minute bit. So I think part of that though is like having very tangible bits of product. And that's why I do the lick of the day, is so that I'm always like the well's never dry. And that's actually also why I say yes to a lot of sample library offers, because it forces me to create content, right? So I hate that word. I like to say music instead, but it forces me to keep creating art. And I notice also, I don't know if either of you have this, but when I'm servicing someone else and having stuff, it's like it actually comes so much more quickly because it's a black or white answer. Whereas when it's for your own thing, there's so much gray area. Whereas if I have to come up with 200 loops for a sample library, I'm like, that's it. And then halfway through, I'm like, why don't I do this for myself, So coming up with bits, though, I think is a big part of that.
Something to add to what Albert said, I feel that audio is often undervalued as far as like the creative disciplines and also sometimes the afterthought because of that. So you're coming in a lot of times to solve a problem that a lot of people haven't put thought into a lot of those answers. So customer service and knowing that you're serving somebody else's purpose and like being able to facilitate that, I think is important. and it's a good way to show the value of what we do, because if there wouldn't be professionals like Derek making the music, where would it come from? And I don't think people really stop and think about that.
Yeah.
Right. They know the difference if it went away.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like everybody hears sounds. Like we're listening all the time. It's like one of our senses that we just underestimate because we're used to constant sound. So it's easy to think like it's everywhere, so it's undervalued. I think.
We got time for one more because we got a little creative exercise for y'all.
How y'all doing this evening? My name is Hillary. I too am new to Austin, 6 months in. I think the question I wanted to ask was just piggyback off what you were talking about, creating kind of like at a constant pace. Is what's the balance for you guys as far as stepping outside of that one thing you do every day to kind of give yourself a break to come back and create? Because I feel like for me, I'm a photographer, cinematographer, and I found that, you know, social media can be really daunting. And what I found over especially last year was a lot of photographers just putting out things like pictures and stuff constantly. And for me, I had to take a step back because I felt I was more of an artist. I kind of see pictures and film in the same way maybe you listen or hear sounds and music. So I stepped back and started doing more project basis rather than forcing myself to have to shoot and put something out constantly. I started putting together, as you would say in your world, an EP, projects of work where this really means something for me. And for me, it kind of helped offset kind of that pressure of having to be out there with the other photographers. It's like, this is more meaningful. I could reach more people with it because it has more feeling to it, the more human connection. Yeah, so just my question to y'all is, what does that balance look like for y'all to offset that?
I think for me, I'm lucky because I have a family, so that's kind of baked in the cake that I need to be with my wife and my daughter at points, and that's like a quick eject button. But before I had that, I think I guess it's like finding one thing that is healthy outside of your art, you know, whether it's hiking or, you know, like I have a friend who does crazy amounts of music, and Dungeons and Dragons is his release, and he's like 40, you know, and he has this thing like they meet at a pub on like Tuesday mornings at 11 and they do Dungeons and Dragons. Like that's his eject button. So maybe finding that, so that's because sometimes, I don't know if you guys have this, but you just need a hard break. You know, you can't slowly transition. And that's also what teaching is for me. It's like a hard break to where I'm servicing somebody else. It's not about my creativity or my needs. It's just about like, I have the next 30 to 60 minutes to be in complete service to this person and their vision. So.
Yeah, excuse me, for me, it's always going on vacation or taking a trip and just unplugging from the news and the world. And just, you know, I was in Palm Springs last week. I didn't turn on the news once and just looked around and enjoyed everything this new place had to offer. And it just recharges your batteries, I think. You know, and I worry too with the younger generation whose faces are always in their phones, that they don't look around enough and see things and explore and do, you know, get out of your comfort zone and, you know, say yes to everything as far as, you know, do you want to go do this? Even if it's not something that you think you want to do, you're going to learn something or maybe see something in a different way. So I think for me, just being in a different place and seeing things is really important.
Susan, you just set us up real nice.
Did I?
Yeah, we're about to make everybody really uncomfortable.
Oh, yay.
All right, everyone stand up, take a nice breath. Give these guys a round of applause. Oh my gosh, I am so grateful for y'all. Thank you so much, Derek and Alberto and Susan. Wow. Reach your hands up, take a nice deep breath in. Through your nose, exhale. All the way down to your toes. Oh yeah, shake it out, make a sound. Inhale, roll it up nice and slowly. And then as you come up to the top, squeeze your shoulders up to your ears, and then exhale. Oh, doesn't that feel nice? We're going to do a quick little creative exercise. Whether you are feeling inspired and want to get out of your head or just learn a new way to I don't know, shake it up when you're feeling stuck at work or you've been behind a computer or something for a while. So I got some papers and pens if you don't have any.